Hello and welcome back to Silver Age, Silver Screen, the podcast where we watch, discuss, and review sci-fi, cult, superhero, and other stereotypically geeky works. I am your co-host, Casey Jarmes.
And I'm your other co-host, Riley Thorpe.
Riley, it's weird. I was just browsing around and I found this big blockbuster action movie that's supposed to come out at the end of the month. I found it online, just there. Although, to be fair, it kinda doesn't look as good as it does in the trailers. Seriously, this thing looks great in the trailers, but man, what did I find? Because this looks like it's out of the 60s. If they release Godzilla vs. Kong and it looks like this, people are gonna be confused.
And that is, of course, why we are referring to the Justice League Snyder Cut. No, I'm kidding. Of course, no. We are talking about King Kong vs. Godzilla, the original King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962.
Well, if we're being technical, we aren't. If you'll kindly look at the episode title, it says King Kong vs. Godzilla, left parenthesis, 1963, right parenthesis.
Yeah.
So, what are we watching? Because we aren't doing the original one from 1962, and we aren't doing the new one, which is the title of this one, except, reversed. Godzilla's top billing now, bitches.
God damn!
No, we're doing something interesting. We're doing the American version.
Mm-hmm.
Both because, we speak English, and because this was the one that was easy to find, and because, let's do the shitty version and mock it for being shitty.
Mm-hmm. You see, throughout the 20th century, a Japanese studio named Toho released a series of films based on the iconic character Godzilla. What started off as a horror film about a giant monster that symbolized the fear the country of Japan had post-World War II Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings Japan. What began as a horror film that symbolized the fear of nuclear radiation and nuclear bomb attacks now eventually became, as the years went on, a cheesy, schlocky, low-budget action movie series about people wearing rubber suits, attacking very obvious miniatures, and other people wearing very obvious rubber suits.
Yeah, and this is the third Godzilla. Well, it was the third Godzilla before we Americaned it up. And, there are still some of those horror elements present because it was early in the series. But at the same time, this is, I would wager a guess, I haven't seen Godzilla Raids again, but I would wager a guess that this is when the series started going in the direction it's known for.
Right.
Because, someone sat down at a table and said, hey, Godzilla, that really famous horror movie that's really chilling? What if he fought the big monkey? Wouldn't that be cool? Big monkey versus big lizard? Fuck yeah, that'd be cool. Well, maybe. We'll see it in the movie. And they made that movie, and they released it in Japan. And it was a smash success. It, to this day, is the most popular Godzilla film, according to the box office.
Really?
Although, when they decided to dub it for an English audience, they decided, looking at this movie, you know what's really lacking? Where do white people? Why are there so many Asians in this Asian film? Let's reshoot part of it and dub it over so that there are white people in it, so our audience can relate to them, because it's 1963.
And of course, the way this movie is structured and the way it's cut together, it's there's a very clear difference between what was the original version and what was added for American audiences a year later. And I'm not just talking about the fact that, in one scene there'll be Japanese people that are clearly dubbed over, and then it'll cut to white people speaking English. It's no, not just that. It's just when they cut from scene to scene, it's a very, very obvious jarring cut between what was there before and what was added.
Yeah, this review is for the 1963 American version.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, probably a lot of what we say does apply to the Japanese version, but we don't know for sure. They cut some scenes, they added some scenes, they rearranged some scenes, and made this weird Frankenstein monster of a film.
But what's crazy about that is, despite the clear, jarring edits made to American audiences, and arguably the fact that this movie's just not that good, this movie was the most successful Godzilla film at the box office for many, many years. And not just that, it was very influential in the fact that this was the first Godzilla and King Kong movie to be featured in color, not black and white. Okay, let's take the most iconic giant kaiju from Japanese cinema, and let's take the most iconic kaiju from American cinema, and let's just have them fight. Which obviously influenced a lot of American cinema to bring that, like, hey, you know that giant monster that attacked Japan in that movie made 20 years ago? Yeah, now he's fighting our monster that attacked our city 30 years ago. And we're gonna re-edit it, and it's gonna be shit. But you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this movie is very influential, despite the fact that it is laughably bad at parts.
So let's just jump right in. First off, can I say, this movie has a really weird first line. It starts out with a zoom in on a globe, as the narrator says, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than dreamed about in your philosophy," which is a Hamlet quote that I don't really see how it applies to this film. Whatever. And then we get introduced to the white person. A white person in this film. Finally! Oh god. I need to see some white people every 5 minutes or my stomach explodes. It's why I have to have a mirror on my desk at all times.
Exactly.
But we're introduced to this UN journalist who is giving a news report. The added scenes, they try and add this framing device of a UN broadcast of what's going on. Except it really doesn't work because A, the film was not intended to have these scenes included, so they just feel out of place. And B, the film keeps cutting to things happening in people's houses. So is it the UN broadcast or what? Whatever.
The biggest thing for me that kept making me laugh at the idea whenever these scenes came on is the fact that not only does it cut to a white guy in a news station explaining what happened, but it also cuts to some random satellite in the middle of space orbiting Earth's gravity that has a representative from the country of Chile, but he speaks with an American accent. And it's just, there's a satellite with people in it, with news reporters in it, in the middle of nowhere. And it's never brought up, and it's never has anything to do with the plot.
Hold on. Did you get the impression that the film was saying he was in the satellite? Because I got the impression it was just bouncing off the satellite. Although maybe he's in the satellite, because that's not any satellite I've ever seen. It's like this weird donut thing.
I don't know. I personally got the impression that he was just hanging out in the satellite because every time they would cut to his character, they would like show an exterior of the satellite, from what I recall. I don't know. This is King Kong versus Godzilla. I'm not a whole lot of attention was put into the details of this movie, to be perfectly honest with you.
So a reporter guy, after saying some pointless stuff about Chile that never comes up again, he starts giving exposition on the plot. Convenient exposition on the plot. How convenient. He talks about this pharmaceutical company that went to Faro Island, not Skull Island for some reason. This mysterious island in the Pacific Ocean. And there they found these berries that are like really good healing stuff. And they're gonna sell them. Also, there's some ice that broke off in the Arctic that is sailing towards Japan, and there's submarines going to check it out. Let's cut to what those submarines are doing. Shit. Oops, crashed into the iceberg. My bad, guys. We're all drowning now. Shouldn't have let me in charge of the controls. I'm the worst driver. Oh god, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that opening scene with the news reporter narrator, that went on for so long. It was so boring and so lazily written. I mean, it's just pure exposition, so it's inherently lazy. But like, just the fact that he's literally staring into the camera, telling the audience everything that's happening. And it just drags on until we're shown, yeah, like you said, the fact that there's icebergs being destroyed and these people that are going to go into this island to steal these types of berries that I believe at one point had have chemotherapy qualities about them. So they're meant to treat people with cancer.
Yeah.
That never comes back, ever. But then it's like, he also mentions that it has a narcotic effect on people. So when consumed at high amounts, it basically gets you drunk. I don't know, maybe that'll play into the plot of the movie.
Yeah, that does come back.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and you know what's the weird thing about this news broadcast? Like I said, the two versions of this film, they're about the same length.
Yeah.
So they added all these news reporter scenes. Do you think there were scenes where the exposition was handled differently and they just replaced them with this clumsy, boring bullshit?
I mean, it's a 1960s Godzilla movie, so, like, I'm not holding out hope that the other version is much better. Granted, I'm sure it is better. I'm sure it is better than just American studios. Let's say, hey, quick, film this exposition real quick, because we need white people in this movie. I'm sure it's a little better, but I'm not holding out hope that the Japanese version is the next Citizen Kane. Because it's King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, I don't know. There's other stuff that were clearly in the Japanese version that I'm like, there's no way that that's good, even then.
So we have some UN submarines. They're exploring these icebergs that have broken off from the Arctic. Some dipshit crashes into them. Like, all the bad things in this movie happen because some dipshit is bad at driving a submarine. He crashes into an iceberg. All the people on the submarine have to evacuate because the submarine is sinking. And then they look at the iceberg and, hey, it's cracking open, and hey, there's something inside it. Hey, what is that? Godzilla! Said in American accent, very poorly dubbed over.
Well, the funny thing for that about me is I found a lot of this movie humorous, so I'm gonna mention like what made me laugh in this review. But what was funny is that the submarine is obviously looking around the water for like these broken icebergs, and then out of nowhere, they see this one iceberg that just starts glowing this bright blue and yellow light. So what do you do when an iceberg is glowing in colors that it's not supposed to? What do you do when it's glowing like that? Obviously you go directly towards it to the point of crashing into it. Obviously that's what you do. Like,
yeah.
What the fuck?
Also, I would like to say something about the people of this world.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the second Godzilla film, which this is a follow-up to. At the end of that movie, Godzilla, from what I've read, he just gets buried in snow and ice.
Yes.
In this, they find him frozen in an iceberg, so you're like, okay, he was there for the last 7 or whatever years. Except, hold on, did they not pay attention? Did they not, like, mark, this is the iceberg where Godzilla is frozen, do not touch? Like, did they just, he's frozen in ice, he'll never bother us again, let's go back to doing whatever the fuck we do, it's the 50s.
I don't know, man.
Like, you should have paid attention to where you bury Godzilla!
Yeah, you know that thing that just attacked our entire country? Yeah, let's just leave it alone. Like, what the hell? There's so much stupidity in the characters of this. It's just shitty, incompetent writing. Like, at the end of the day, I find it very hard to take these... Because this obviously fits into our schedule. This fits into, like, the cult classic.
Does it?
Does it? I don't know.
I think it's actually like, what's an old nerd movie like James Bond? Oh, Godzilla versus King Kong.
Whatever.
The old one.
Point is, I find it hard, like, these movies that are, like, have cult followings, I do consider this movie to be, and all Godzilla movies to be cult films, because they have a very specific, niche, devoted following. But it's like, I find it so hard to take movies like this seriously, because it's like, they're just so poorly made. At what point do I just have to sit back and accept, like, yeah, this is just a 60-year-old B movie? This movie's almost 60 years old.
God damn, yeah. So speaking of characters just being morons, after Godzilla breaks out, we are introduced to Mr. Taco. He has an unintentionally funny name. Mr. Taco is an executive at the pharmaceutical company that's been selling those red berries from Skull Island. And after finding out about Godzilla, he's like, god damn it! All of our publicity is gone! No one's paying attention to us because of the big dinosaur that is killing everyone! I know! We need a kaiju! That way, people will pay attention to us, because we'll have a kaiju! And, wait, what's this? The island where we get these berries? They say that there's this big monkey that eats the berries and that makes him really fucking tall? I know, I'll send my 2 most incompetent employees to go to that island and bring back a kaiju. Okie doke.
It comes to a point where you're like, did they know? Like, they had to have known they were making something so stupid. Like, they were just having fun with it at this point. And, like you said, oh yeah, let's send the biggest dumbasses that work for me to go catch a giant kaiju gorilla. It's just so dumb. And then that another thing you said raised another question for me that I thought of when I was watching the movie is, in that opening exposition dump with the white narrator, he does say that the reason why the berries are so difficult to acquire is because the natives of Faroe Island are so protective of it because they use them as offerings for the giant monster that lives on the island that they worship as a god, which obviously ends up being King Kong. They say that the reason why he's so big is because he eats those berries. But I'm sitting here like, wait, aren't these people like trying to acquire these berries to sell for medicinal purposes? Are they going to be selling these to people with the full knowledge and understanding that they're going to make them giant kaiju-sized people by eating them? Like, what?
I mean, I guess, I don't know, King Kong eats nothing but these giant berries. Although at the same time, they don't even like, oh, let's test out these berries. They supposedly make this giant monkey really giant. And the fact that he's a giant monkey means we should pay attention to what they're saying. Let's see what happens when people eat a bunch of them. No, the berries don't really factor into the plot of this movie besides for setting up that they go to get a King Kong and also King Kong-like berry.
Right, exactly.
Like, their medicinal use isn't really important to the plot.
No, they set up 3 things that the berries do. They make living creatures really big, they make you drunk, and they're used for medicinal purposes. The medicinal purposes one, never focused on beyond that one initial throwaway line of, oh yeah, they have chemotherapeutic properties to them. Beyond that, that has no impact on anything else. It's just, it gets you drunk and it makes you taller. Fuck. Sign me up, dude. Sign me up for those.
For context, Riley's like, what, 5'2"?
No, I'm 5'5". Fuck you.
I knew it would be funnier to go under than over.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm cool. I think it's so funny. What, 5'2"?
Whatever. Also, another thing that's really weird about this movie, I don't know what Japanese businesses were like in the 60s, admittedly, but this company that is going to get Big Monkey, they're both a pharmaceutical company and a TV station. They're both, and which one they are depends on the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get a TV station wanting to find Big Monkey because, hey, TV show, but like, I mean, I guess the pharmaceutical company is like, hey, these bears create this big fucking thing. You should eat them. There's a few scenes of Godzilla just wrecking shit coming towards Japan, which, I mean, they haven't aged well, but for the 60s, they're pretty good,
yeah,
I would say.
Yeah. Though I will say the miniatures, they often use miniatures from this, because obviously it's a regular sized guy in a rubber suit, but like, the miniatures, they're not bad, but goddamn, is it so painfully obvious that they are miniatures.
Yeah.
At no point for me is it ever convincing, like, oh no, this is real. I don't know. And again, you can't really fault it for that because it is set in the 60s and it's King Kong versus Godzilla.
We're too far removed from this film to have any thoughts of value on how good the special effects are.
Right.
We're just gonna set that to the side. But anyway, Godzilla smashes some shit. He destroys all the Matchbox cars, breaks all the tanks. He's coming towards Japan. Specifically, he's coming towards Hokkaido, my favorite part of Japan. Hokkaido. A lot of this movie takes place in Hokkaido, and they call it Hokkaido every time, and it annoys me. Like, if you're going to adapt a movie set in Japan, at least pronounce the place name right, but whatever. Before the Pharma Bros set out, we get a scene of one of them, Sakurai, having dinner with his sister and her boyfriend. And we get some painfully obvious Chekhov stunning with him showing off, hey, check out this cool new, really strong wire. I wonder if that's gonna be used ever. Whatever. Have fun going to Murder Island where they got the big monkey.
Yeah.
So they sail to Faroe Island, and there are natives there who, I mean, they're not especially bad, but I mean, they are natives from a movie from the 60s. Well, let's be honest, movies from the 2020s also aren't great of their portrayal of indigenous people, but yeah, some stereotypical native dudes who worship King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep. It's not the most politically correct portrayal of native indigenous people, as you said, Casey. It's very clearly a product of the 60s.
At least they're not identified as any particular group. They're just generic natives, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I almost forgot. So, like, the explorer dudes, they go to Faroe Island, and the natives are hostile to them at first, but they manage to get the natives to like them by giving them cigarettes.
Yep.
They gave all the natives cigarettes, including the children.
Yeah, they literally have a conversation where it's like this little kid is right next to them and they go, "Oh, I wish I would have brought some candy. Let's give him a cigarette instead." And they give him a cigarette. They give him two, and then he's like, "Don't tell your mother." They turn around, the kid's mother is standing right behind him, and then the mother takes one of the cigarettes out of his hand. Not both of them. Just one, leaving one for her son. Her toddler son.
I mean, it was the 60s. There was, at that point, big tobacco company propaganda to hide the fact that cigarettes were poison. But still, it is weird looking back to see a movie where the hero gives cigarettes to children. Also, even back then, I mean, it's not so bad because they only seem to give one cigarette to each person. But it's a good thing they didn't give a lot, because you are giving a very addictive chemical to people who do not have access to tobacco. Like, awesome, all the natives have tobacco addiction, and they have no tobacco. Sucks to be them.
It's just such a weird encounter. Like, they get captured, and then, I don't know where they, like, become friends by giving them all, like, cigarettes. I don't know, it's just so bizarre.
The scenes on the island, they end, before they cut away, with the natives, like, hearing something and then freaking out and all bowing and like, playing drums. And the Farmer Bro explorers are like, they're scared of the thunderstorm. There's no god here. And then they hear a roar and they're like, okay, we're gonna bow. And then immediately, jarringly cut back to Godzilla wrecking shit.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, this film does, for what it's given, it does do a decent job at introducing King Kong to this universe. I mean, if anything, I would definitely say that this film more so focuses on King Kong than it does Godzilla. Godzilla honestly comes across as more of just kind of a nuisance that kind of shows up every once in a while. King Kong is given like a full backstory. We see where he is from, what gives him his power.
And I mean, that makes sense because King Kong, I mean, he's from a movie from the 30s created by a different studio. Godzilla, he's been in 2 movies from this studio back in the 50s. It makes sense. Although for some reason, the English version of this movie tries to pretend the other 2 Godzilla movies don't exist. I mean, everyone calls him Godzilla as soon as they see him, but like, no, this is a new character. I mean, the reason you want to watch this movie because it was 2 famous characters fighting, but no, Godzilla? Who is Godzilla? And they have this painful scene on the satellite space station where all the white people live of a scientist coming on with the children's book that has photos of dinosaurs and saying, Godzilla is a dinosaur, like this T-Rex, possibly a crossbreed between a T-Rex and a Stegosaurus. I don't think so, audience member Casey says, because A, crossbreeding is no, you can't just crossbreed dinosaurs. B, those 2 dinosaur species live millions of years apart. And C, hold on, so you're saying that Godzilla's a crossbreed between these 2 dinosaurs? Why is he so big then? Like, if he's not big because of radiation, if he's just some prehistoric dinosaur, why is he big?
Honestly, that scientist is probably my favorite part in this entire movie, because every single word out of his mouth is like some scientific bullshit that would make sense to toddlers.
He pulls out a picture book, goddammit!
Exactly.
This is supposed to be the UN's top scientist!
Exactly. But the actor says it with such conviction and such motivation that it just comes across as so funny to me. I don't understand it. He like comes across as someone who he speaks in the manner of someone who is very intelligent, but then he brings out a fucking children's picture book to explain what exactly he thinks Godzilla is. It's so funny. It's so stupid. But what's interesting about that is he has like a line of dialogue that is in many ways just kind of a throwaway line in this movie, but in many ways is going to be a big plot point for the next Godzilla vs. Kong movie that's coming out in a few weeks. Basically, he says that he believes that King Kong and Godzilla, they both come from these ancient species that have been at war for millions of years, and now Godzilla and King Kong are the only two remaining of their species, so naturally they're going to continue their war.
I mean, okay.
But like,
sure.
It's dumb. It's dumb, but like in this movie it's a throwaway line, but by the looks and sounds of what the new one's going to come out with is like that's actually going to be a very important plot point.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
So back on Not Skull Island, our idiot explorers... Actually, there's a really weird scene that I don't understand. Maybe it makes sense in the Japanese version, where one of them wakes up and he's just like, corn! Like, what the... What? Why are you obsessed with corn, dude? Whatever. But back on Faroe Island, the village with the natives is attacked by a giant octopus monster, which I don't know if I should laugh about how cheap it is or be amazed at how clever it is. The village is destroyed by a giant octopus monster. That's just an octopus. They just threw an octopus down on the set and just watched it destroy shit. And I mean, it's the best looking monster in the movie.
But when it cuts to like the villagers fighting him, and again, I get it's a 60-year-old movie, but god damn, did those special effects not age well. I mean, there are movies even from that time period where the special effects look exponentially better. It's very clear that they put the actors on a green screen, or they're like overlaying the actors on top of like the shots of the real octopus. And it's like the people are like grainy blue figures against like a realistic looking octopus.
Oh god, yeah, like it's even worse in a later scene when King Kong is destroying Tokyo. I mean, it's night, so yeah, the people are blue, except all the shots on King Kong aren't super blue. This does not look good at all. Ugh.
No, there's even a couple shots where like the octopus tentacles are flying out and grabbing the natives, and they use stop motion animation, but clearly they didn't have enough budget or time to make it look good. There's like multiple frames that are completely taken out of the shot, and it's just, God, it just does not age well. But interesting fun fact that I heard about this movie is that for this scene, they used a total of 4 live octopi to successfully accomplish this scene. They didn't just use one octopus, they used 4 of them. And the special effects supervisor, after the filming had wrapped up, ate one of the 4.
I mean, that's kind of mean. Like, he was your co-worker, man.
Yeah. But, you know, what are you gonna do? So, I just think that that's really funny to think about, like, yeah, this guy ate one of the props.
I mean, you're not wrong, but the term prop is so weird to describe an animal used in a movie.
Yeah, you're right.
No animals were hurt in the making of this film. Well, I mean, that wasn't in the making of the film. It was afterwards. Steve got hungry.
Yeah, technically, that only applies to when the animals are on screen. When the animals are on screen, no animal is harmed. If they, like, happen to get hit by a car when they're wrapping up for the day, I don't know. They weren't harmed during the making of the movie. So, legally, under the...
Oh, thank God! We turned off the
definition-
camera just in time.
Exactly. So, under the legal definition, technically no animals were harmed during the making of that movie, despite the fact that one of them were eaten afterwards.
But anyway, King Kong shows up and he kicks the shit out of the octopus and, like, throws it away. And then... Kong gets fucking wasted. He just drinks a shitload of berry juice and collapses. He gets drunk. He gets drunk off fermented magic berries and passes out.
So that was the reveal of King Kong. And I'm gonna be real, he looks like shit in this movie. Like, I get they did the best with what they could for, like, the special effects budget and, like, the costume design. But god damn, At no point does he look like he's a real gorilla, and I would understand that, but just look at his face. I mean, come on. It doesn't even look remotely convincing. And he just looks ugly and obviously fake, and it's just so bizarre. And his arms are really, really long. You can see the folding of the costume as the person's body moves underneath it. So yeah, King Kong looks like shit. The fight with the octopus looks like shit because the prop they use for the fake octopus, when he grabs it and then he just kind of puts it on his head, it looks like it's wrapped in cellophane, and then he just kind of throws it and then it crawls away. And then, yeah, they start playing the drums.
For way too long. It's 5 minutes of them dancing around King Kong, playing the drums to get him to sleep.
Yeah, and then he just passes out. I mean, props to them for trying to add something to the lore of King Kong, but when it's a 5-minute sequence of just, oh yeah, he's passed out and we're gonna spend the next 5 minutes of the movie dancing around his inebriated body, it's why are you this way? You know what I mean? Why are you this way?
Also, it should be noted, this is not your grandpa's King Kong. Classic King Kong, he fits on the top of the Empire State Building. This guy is Godzilla size. He's bigger than the Empire State Building. Which is good, because if it was regular King Kong versus Godzilla, King Kong would be fucking toast.
Yeah.
Literally, because Godzilla has the fire breath.
Right, exactly.
Or radiation breath, whatever.
In the original King Kong film, I believe they said he was something I want to say
30 feet?
Yeah, something like that. Just a couple times the size of regular humans, but Godzilla is hundreds of feet tall. For this movie, it's no, Godzilla and King Kong, they're the exact same size. Well, technically, King Kong is a little shorter, but he's a lot bigger than what he was originally. Enough to go up against Godzilla, which, again, going off of what they're going to do for the next King Kong vs. Godzilla movie that's coming out in a couple weeks, they made it clear that, yes, in Kong Skull Island, King Kong was a lot smaller than Godzilla, but that's because he was a child version of himself, and he had a lot of growing to do.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that in the continuity of these modern King Kong and Godzilla movies, the King Kong he's a fully grown gorilla, but as he gets older, he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger?
Yeah.
I want to see old King Kong. He's the size of the moon.
To be perfectly honest with you, I haven't seen the most recent ones, for full disclosure. I plan to soon, but Kong Skull Island, he's the biggest King Kong in an American movie we've ever seen, and he's still a teenager or something like that. And that movie takes place in the 70s, and it cuts 50 years into the future to today when Godzilla vs. Kong happens, and he's the size of Godzilla.
Okay. So the Farmer Bros, they don't show it happen, but they take King Kong. They drag him back on a raft, and the natives worship him. Were they just okay with you stealing their god?
And that was one of my biggest problems with this movie is every single time something happens, it'll cut back to the Americans in the news crew, and they'll be staring at the camera telling us what happened and then what happened next. When the submarine crashed at the beginning of the movie and the helicopter watches as Godzilla is unleashed from the iceberg, cut to the UN news reporter being Godzilla is unleashed from a frozen iceberg. The creature that attacked Japan many years ago is now unthawed, and now he's been making his way to Japan, where he's been attacking many islands and neighboring the country. So it's it explained what happened, then what happened next, and then we're picking up with the actual scenes after that. And then with this scene, it's oh yeah, the Japanese television pharmaceutical crew, they were able to inebriate King Kong and somehow build a raft, and they're en route to bring King Kong back to Japan with them. No mention of how the hell the natives reacted to that. No mention on whether or not the people in the submarine survived earlier in the movie when they crashed into the iceberg and Godzilla was unleashed. As far as we know, they're all dead.
So, a rare moment of a character being smart in this movie. As Team Pharma is dragging King Kong back to Japan, the Navy stops them and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Godzilla's wrecking Hokkaido and you're importing a kaiju? No, go away. Get that thing fucking away from here. Go away. Stop trying to import kaiju. We have enough problem.
Yeah.
And then King Kong wakes up and he breaks free of his bindings and wanders off. Oops.
Well, what happens there is another smart thing they did was on the giant raft that they somehow just had lying around, they tied up a bunch of C4 onto it, enough to like explode the raft and presumably kill King Kong in the process. As Kong is waking up, they blow up the C4 and doesn't do anything. Literally does nothing. King Kong gets up and just starts making his way towards Japan. Like, well, never mind.
These are our film's heroes, by the way. These fucking morons! You imported a kaiju! How are you not in prison? They, work with the military to destroy King Kong and Godzilla later on, but, these people, they should be in prison! So many people die because you bring in a King Kong!
Right.
Oh my god. I hope that will make your drugs sell better, ?
I mean, I get that there was... in a desperate attempt to try and find some semblance of purpose and meaning in this story, it's like, I get there is some connection between, pharmaceutical companies and just them finding profit no matter what. I get that there could be some commentary there, but at the end of the day, it's, so poorly executed that it just does not shine through. It doesn't make any sense.
You know what could have been an interesting commentary in this film?
That?
This film, it is King Kong, an American kaiju, versus Godzilla, a Japanese kaiju.
Right.
Also, Godzilla's origins are heavily linked to Japanese fears created by the US dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and later testing in the Pacific. I feel like this film could have had something to say about the relationship between Japan and the US, but it doesn't.
Nope, because big monsters go punchy on each other. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, and they don't even go punch each other till there's 10 minutes left in the movie. It's disappointing.
Right, yeah.
So anyway, Godzilla starts wrecking Hokkaido, and we get the subplot of the sister of one of the Pharma Bros. Her boyfriend was on a plane that got destroyed by Godzilla, and she's like, oh no, I'm gonna go to where Godzilla is to find him. And then she leaves, and then he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, I wasn't on that plane. I didn't call or anything. What? She's going to Hokkaido to find me? I'll go find her. And he, rescues her at the last minute from Godzilla as Godzilla's just wrecking shit.
Right.
I don't really care about the human characters in this movie. We aren't given enough time to care about them.
No, not at all.
Godzilla's wrecking his way across Japan. They specifically note that it's weird. King Kong, he's just walking towards Godzilla. It's like he has this innate desire to go punch that big fucking dinosaur. Which I like. The King Kong, he can sense Godzilla and just wants to kick his shit in.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. The military tries a few things to get rid of Godzilla. They try shooting at him. They try a big pit trap. They create a giant barrier of electric wire around Tokyo, which stops Godzilla because in this film he's weak to electricity. Except I don't think that would work.
No.
He can breathe fire. He could just melt it and walk through. But whatever. It keeps Godzilla out. But you know what it doesn't keep out? King Kong. And he wrecks shit in Tokyo. Hundreds of people probably die because they wanted their ad campaign.
Right.
And he picks up Fumiko, who this is the second time in this movie she's been a damsel in distress. Because, I don't know, King Kong's thing is picking up young women and climbing buildings. And they shoot aerosolized berry juice at him and he faints.
Yeah.
Neat.
I don't know. I was actually kind of conflicted on my feelings of that scene because it's kind of okay, that's them adapting the beauty killed the beast part of King Kong's lore. He's a primitive animal that loves beautiful things and he climbs a tower to prove his dominance.
Yeah, but Beauty doesn't kill the beast in this version. Beauty gets held like a Barbie doll until Beast hears some drums and takes a nap.
Side note, there was a reboot of King Kong in the 70s starring Jeff Bridges.
Oh.
Yeah, And instead of King Kong climbing the Empire State Building, you want to know what building he climbs?
Oh God, is it the Twin Towers?
Yep. Granted, it's in the 70s, but still, like, looking back, it's like, that did not age well.
And you know what? I can see that as, like, something that you would do. There's two of them, so he can, like, Donkey Kong Jr. is way up. Oh, God, and is there planes flying around, like, in the 30s version?
I don't know about planes, maybe, but there were helicopters, definitely.
Oops.
Like I said, does not age well, whatsoever.
So... everyone comes up with the perfect idea to finally give the audience what they want. Actually, no, we missed something. Earlier in the film, Godzilla and King Kong finally meet, and Godzilla breathes a little radiation on King Kong, and King Kong's like, fuck this, I'm gonna go wreck Tokyo, I don't want to deal with you. Which, I mean... okay, I mean, I thought he had this innate desire to kick Godzilla's shit in, but yeah, I mean, if I was King Kong, I would walk away. He can breathe radiation.
Do you want to know what was, in my opinion, the best part of this movie? Just the craziest, most absurd, was how they got King Kong and Godzilla together for that confrontation. It wasn't even a fight. It was like an awkward standoff. They got that berry juice, put it in rockets, fired them and blew them up above King Kong so that, like, the vaporized version of the berry juice would, like, fall down onto him, make him sleepy. And also to help him sleep, they played the drums and the natives performing to, like, get him to fall asleep. And when they did, they basically like, hey, do you remember that, like, spool of thread that is stronger than steel that was in that obligatory scene at the beginning of the movie that is, like, really tiny and can, like, barely be held by a human being? Yeah, out of nowhere, we just have massive amounts of that thread that we're gonna tie around King Kong, fill up over a dozen giant balloons with helium, lift him into the air, and then drag him to where Godzilla's located. What the
Yes,
fuck?
and... unlike the last time where King Kong ran away after they just drop him on Godzilla, this time we finally get the fight that is all anyone wanted from this movie. And it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty entertaining. A lot of it's just, I don't know. Like, it's really it's really weird. Like, King Kong gets knocked out like 3 times.
Yeah.
And Godzilla, for some reason, instead of, blowing him with his atomic radiation fire breath, he just, like, starts trying to bury him alive and hitting him with his tail.
And, like, the lamest part is King Kong does some, like, combat rolls. Ooh, he's, like, smart and agile. And then he rolls into a mountain and hits his head. And it's one of the times he knocks himself out. And he's supposed to be the smart one. They make a big deal of, oh, King Kong is smarter than Godzilla. Not really.
No.
He hit his head on a rock and got knocked out.
And then Godzilla, instead of... he does blow fire, but he doesn't hit King Kong. He just blows it right next to him, starting the forest right next to him on fire. And then, out of nowhere, a giant thunderstorm comes. King Kong gets struck by lightning, and for some reason, the giant ape is empowered by lightning.
And I mean, they tried to foreshadow it a few times, like, oh, he's able to tank through the electrical wire around Tokyo. Oh, he's first introduced roaring in a thunderstorm. But, I mean, at the same time, he gets struck by lightning, he gets back up, and he can now channel electricity to hurt Godzilla. Okay. I don't remember that in the 30s film.
No, that just doesn't make sense among what the species of those characters are. Like, if anything, I would believe if Godzilla had the power to do that.
From what I saw in people discussing this movie online, in some Godzilla films, he can create electricity.
Right, exactly. Like, in the most recent Godzilla movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters, he literally can, like, turn his body so hot that, like, literally metal, concrete, everything around him is just incinerated. It's like they weren't even trying to make a coherent movie with this one, honestly.
Yeah. And you know what's the worst part about the fight in the movie that is called King Kong vs. Godzilla, that's all about King Kong vs. Godzilla?
Yeah.
It just kind of ends.
Yeah.
Like, there's an earthquake, and they both fall into the ocean, and, like, are they dead? Well, then King Kong pops his head out, and he wanders off, he's heading home. I guess Godzilla's dead now because he fell in the ocean. The next Godzilla movie opens with him walking out of the ocean. Probably shouldn't have celebrated. Probably should have made sure Godzilla was dead.
Well, it's interesting because the original script, I believe, said like the two of them get out of the water and they're just like, our fight's over. But that was like just super lame, so they were like, all right, we need one of them to win. And in both American and Japanese versions of this movie, King Kong is the only one that gets out of the water. However, in the American one, when it says the end, you hear King Kong, so basically like he's the winner. But in the Japanese version, you hear both King Kong and Godzilla roaring, implying that Godzilla is still out there.
Yeah, I do know there's a famous urban legend. It's not true, by the way. King Kong wins in both versions. Well, win in air quotes. But there's a famous urban legend that in the original Japanese version, Godzilla wins because, Japanese monster. It doesn't. He's supposed to be the bad guy. He gets his ass kicked. Well, not even that. He falls in the water and the fight's over.
Yeah. So, I don't know. During the final fight, they just kind of stand on two sides of a giant building and they destroy it in between each other. I guess that was kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not really cool, but it's kind of funny. Like, King Kong picks up a tree and, tries to shove it down Godzilla's throat. Eat your goddamn vegetables, Godzilla.
Honestly, I get what this movie was trying to be. It's just trying to be a B-movie that they re-edited to appeal to American audiences more. It's 60 years old. It's gonna be cheap, schlocky, awkward, poorly made. I get it, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I was kind of unimpressed by it. It's not offensive. I mean, apart from, the stereotypical performances of native people. I don't know, this was a decent movie apart from the fact that they're pandering to American audiences and destroying a Japanese film. So I guess I wouldn't say non-offensive, but I don't know. This movie is what it is. It's really schlocky, really bad special effects.
I mean, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt on the special effects because it was 1962. From what I've heard, this was pretty good in 1962. But I can't give benefit of the doubt, and maybe it's because of stuff was cut for the English version. But the human side characters are just kind of dull. That's the big problem. I don't really care about anything in this movie besides the 10 minutes that is the final battle, but that doesn't happen till the final 10 minutes of this film.
I don't know, like I said, King Kong looked like shit. I get because of the budget and costume restraints, but it's a cheesy, schlocky Godzilla film from the 60s. At the end of the day, you gotta ask yourself, what were any of us expecting?
Well, Riley, on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you think?
To be honest, like I always mention, I always bring up whenever we do these cult classic movies, I'm kind of left with this feeling of how the hell am I supposed to rate this? Am I supposed to rate it objectively or just based on sheer entertainment value? Based on the reason why this movie is talked about and so beloved today? So I don't know. I'm gonna just kind of combine the two. Overall, I'm gonna give this movie a 5 out of 10. Didn't really leave too much of an impression on me. It's not a great film. There is some enjoyment to be made, but it's not one of those so bad it's good movies, but it's also not very good either. It's just kind of bad and poorly done, harmless entertainment. But I do get if you are a fan of kaiju films and you're a fan of Godzilla franchise and if that's what you're into, this is for you. Me personally, didn't really leave that much of an impression. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
I hate to give this film a worse score than Man of Steel. I'm going to give it a worse score than Man of Steel. Okay, setting the special effects aside, it's just not a great written film.
No, it's a terribly written film.
Yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Which is why I feel like I'm going to give this movie a 6.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we watched it, and I'm glad especially we watched it in honor of the new King Kong vs. Godzilla movie coming out this year. You and I were talking about it a little bit beforehand. I personally am actually pleasantly surprised we're actually getting this movie because this was announced way back when Kong Skull Island came out, and when was that? 2017? 2016? I don't know. But, like, it sounded to me like when they announced it, it sounded like, okay, that sounds like a movie they say they're gonna make, but it's like, because the next few are gonna be so bad, they're just gonna cancel it. It's like the whole Dark Universe, Frankenstein versus the Mummy versus the Invisible Man starring Johnny Depp. You know, it's like that whole universe. I was expecting this franchise to go that direction, but to be perfectly honest, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that we're getting this movie at all.
Yeah, I don't know if the Monsterverse is really a cinematic universe at this point, but I don't doubt that's gonna be successful in years coming forward because it's centered around Godzilla. Godzilla with really good special effects, just wrecking shit, beating up King Ghidorah, now gonna beat up King Kong. Like, it's probably gonna be cool.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the first 2 Godzilla movies from the new trilogy, but like, shit, I'm probably gonna watch this one because, you know, it's not in theaters, it's being streamed. Also, I watched this one, so I'm obligated to watch the other one. Whatever, that's the review. Riley, where can they find you?
You can all find me on YouTube at Riley Thorpe, where you can check out all of my short films. I have a lot of horror comedy on there and a lot more coming soon. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at Riley James Thorpe, where I post a lot of entertaining content on there. Give me a follow on all of those and just to check out more of my content.
You can all find me on Twitter at Jarmes, Casey, Jarmes, Casey. You can also find all of my short stories at caseyjarmes.wordpress.com. Check them out, there's some good ones in there. Check out It Came From Below the Waves, that's a good one. We'll be back next week, assuming we don't go to Hokkaido to find our boyfriend who's actually here, but he didn't call because he's a dick. We should dump his ass. Whatever. And next week, we are returning to the MCU. We talk about it all the time, but we don't actually review it very much. And we're going to be reviewing the first Thor movie. Mm-hmm. Haven't seen that in a few years. I like Thor as a character. I don't really remember. Was that film any good?
It's fine.
I think it was just kind of middle of the road,
yeah,
right?
From what I recall. But this is going to be our second MCU film review.
It'll be good. It'll be good. You know what? That film's probably better than I remember. As always, I'm Casey Jarmes.
And I'm Riley Thorpe.
And hey, it's just a movie. Don't lose your head about it. Especially not to a ladder.